This Chupacabra sighting happened back in 2008, and so a sheriff's deputy in DeWitt County, Texas, had no idea he was about to capture one of the most unsettling cryptid videos ever recorded on a police dashcam. He was patrolling a remote stretch of road with another deputy on duty when a strange animal kind of darted just out of the brush. Now, it had hairless gray-blue skin and arched back, long limbs, and walked with a very eerie, almost robotic type of vibe. And the eyes, well, they reflected light like an animal, but the same shape of the face was just wrong. I mean, the deputy trained to identify wild animals flat out said this wasn't a coyote or a dog, despite it basically being the size of a coyote. Now, it didn't move like one either, though. I mean, the footage made the local news and quickly spread online, sparking really intense debates. While wildlife officials chalked it up to just mangy, cryptid experts noted the creature's unusually long hind legs, its unnatural posture, and the way it seemed to be kind of aware of the car slowing down, turning its head to look directly at the dash cam. Many people who watched this footage, of course, were skeptical, with some saying it's a dog and others saying it's a coyote, but apparently, according to locals, their sheep and other livestock recently were being attacked and had fang marks in them, which would have been the same fangs this Chupacabra had as well. One argument that people had was that it couldn't be the elusive Chupacabra simply because they caught this one in the daytime, and it's alleged that Chupacabras only actually come out at night. Well, what do you guys think? Chupacabra, dog, coyote, something else entirely? Let me know. Let's go to Curo, Texas, back in 2007. This is where rancher Phyllis Canyon was losing chickens, but not in the usual messy, feathers everywhere kind of way. These birds were turning up deceased with puncture wounds to the neck, and not a drop of red liquid in their bodies. Whatever, was doing it wasn't actually eating the meat either, it was just draining them dry, which is terrifying in itself to even think about, because that means they were really just doing it for fun. Yikes. Now, one day Phyllis spotted a strange hairless creature stalking the property. She described it as dog-like, but with, a bluish gray tint to its skin, long fangs, and an angular snout. It didn't run like a dog either. It allegedly had more of a glide about the way it was moving. Now, weeks later, the body of a similar creature turned up unalive near her property. She saw it and recognized it immediately. She took the passed-on creature, and Phyllis had it preserved and actually mounted, and the skull looked nothing like a coyote's. Now, scientists offered DNA tests, claiming it was a hybrid of a coyote and a Mexican wolf, but cryptozoologists, weren't so easily convinced. I mean, Phyllis went public with this, and National Geographic even interviewed her. I mean, the footage of her showing the mounted creature went viral. It was creepy, bizarre, and most of all, completely unexplainable. What do you guys think it looks like? I mean, it's ugly, whatever it is, I'll say that. Let's go back to 2014 in Ratcliffe, Texas, where residents weren't just seeing a strange creature, they were feeding it. Couples set up trail cams after spotting something prowling around their backyard at night. Now, what the camera caught was unnerving to say the least. A skinny, hunched creature with a long snout, large claws, and absolutely no fur. This one, however, seemed to maybe be a baby? Well, anyway, they nicknamed it Chupi and filmed it multiple times over several nights. The animal didn't shy away from the camera either. It kind of moved deliberately as if aware it was being watched. Now, wildlife experts again blamed, mange on it, and skeptics noticed that the creature's limbs were just abnormally long and that it didn't have any visible sores, just bare, tough, almost leathery type skin. Now, the video made national headlines, and even animal control officers admitted they couldn't confirm exactly what it was. Many people, of course, not only in this particular community, but the whole state, and also just generally online, once the footage was posted, they had a lot to say in regards to it. One person online said, "Finally, the mystery of the Chupacabra has been solved. Beware, folks, they are out there and they are looking for you." That's scary. Chupacabra sightings are getting more and more frequent, and for this sighting, well, let's go back, like way back, to where this whole modern legend started. I'm taking you to Puerto Rico in 1995. Now, that year, dozens of reports came pouring in from people all over the island claiming that their goats and livestock were being found unalived and completely drained. Witnesses described seeing a bipedal creature with large red eyes, spikes running down its back, and long clawed hands. One infamous piece of footage shows the creature running across a sugarcane field at night, hunched, tall, and very fast. I mean, it was recorded with a grainy VHS camcorder, and although the quality is very poor, the shape and movement still sends chills down the spine. Even more bizarre, well, the Puerto Rican government got involved. Military officers were reportedly seen inspecting some of the attack sites, and several villagers claimed they were warned not to speak to the press. Handful of digitized versions of this footage still kind of survive online. I mean, when you watch it, you'll see, why it triggered global Chupacabra hysteria. In 2011, in the remote village of Silo in Russia, something strange and quite terrifying began attacking livestock there. Farmers were finding their goats and sheep with small, very clean puncture wounds and absolutely no red liquid though. Then one night, a farmer set up a CCTV camera behind his shed. What the footage caught still has not been explained. Now a humanoid figure, hunched and lanky with glowing eyes, creeps across the frame. It stops in front of a tree, stays completely still for like 2 minutes, eats some grass, it would appear, and then kind of slinks out of view. The creature didn't move like a person, its limbs were long, its arms hung low, and the way it pivoted its head was just simply inhuman. Now Russian TV stations aired the clip, calling it the Russian Chupacabra. Biologists were stumped, and the attacks continued for several weeks before mysteriously just stopping. Once the footage circulated online, many people had their own thoughts and opinions. Of course, many said it's likely just a dog who's hungry, with others saying it's definitely not a dog. One comment that got a lot of likes and attention though is from an unknown person online who said, "People keep saying this creature came from the closest zoo. So you're telling me that came from a zoo? Absolutely not. The zoo isn't even close enough to this village for that to be possible. And also, I'm pretty sure that's a chupacabra because the dogs do not have tails that long." Well, I guess upon reading this comment, everyone, and I won't lie, including myself, went back to check on this very particular find. And yeah, the creature's tail is in fact way too long to be a dog's. I just personally have never ever seen a dog with a tail that long, and forget the tail, the eyes too. I've never even seen a dog with glowing eyes like that. What do you guys think though? Could it possibly be some of the best footage we have to prove that the Chupacabra is real and is out there? Let me know. Back in 2020, just 5 years ago, and yes, wow, I can't believe I'm even saying that because 2020 feels like yesterday, am I right? Anyway, a woman named Susan in Blanco, Texas posted very chilling home surveillance footage to Facebook that left viewers stunned. At exactly 2:43 p.m., her camera picked up movement in her backyard. A very gaunt, dog-like creature with a skeletal build and elongated limbs kind of crept into frame. Susan said her pets had been acting strange for days leading up to the encounter. Now, many people believe it's a dog mixed with a mountain lion or a rare hyena that escaped from someone's estate. But the main thought was that it had to have been a wild dog or a dingo or even a wolf. Now, Susan never saw it again, and Susan never wanted to see it again. And truthfully, I don't blame her. Finally, we have a clip that has been circulating online, and although the footage sucks because it seems to have been taken on a cheap security camera, you can see the animal, or whatever it really is, walk into frame slowly and make its way across the ground. Now, this thing was massive, and the giant creature you can see then turns its head towards the camera, its eyes reflected brightly, but instead of running, it slowly kind of just tilted its head and stared for like 10 full seconds. Wildlife officials dismissed it as a trick of the camera, and some thought maybe it was a lion, although that begged the question, how did a lion get there? Some said maybe a giant raccoon or a fox, which again, But locals weren't buying any of this. They assumed it was someone in a suit, which also is unlikely in my opinion though. The footage went viral in Texas cryptid groups, and to this day, no one has been able to definitively say what it was. What do you guys think though? So is this Chupacabra just a coyote, that's sick, a misunderstood predator, or are we dealing with something far stranger, like a predator that doesn't just, hurt, but hunts silently, surgically, and disappears before it can ever be caught? Either way, one thing is clear, these encounters are real, the videos are real, and what they show is something we still can't explain. The Beast of Bray Road in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. A teenager swerved off the road to avoid hitting what she thought was a bear, but when she looked closer, it was no bear. It stood upright over 6 feet tall with glowing yellow eyes and fur matted with mud. It bared its fangs at her before sprinting off on 2 legs like a human, but faster. This wasn't a one-off sighting. Since the 1980s, dozens of residents in Elkhorn, Wisconsin have reported seeing the same thing, a wolf man lurking along Bray Road. Some say it even chased their cars. Named for the rural farm road on which it was first, purportedly sighted, reports of the creature in the 1980s and 1990s prompted a local newspaper, the Walworth County Week, to assign reporter Linda Godfrey to cover the story. Godfrey was initially skeptical, but later became convinced of the sincerity of many witnesses. Her series of articles later became a book titled The Beast of Bray Road, tailing Wisconsin's werewolves, so check it out. The shapeshifter of Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. One night, a rancher at the infamous Skinwalker Ranch watched as a massive wolf-like creature walked calmly through a field and attacked his livestock. Even after being hit point blank with a rifle, it didn't flinch. Instead, it stared at the man with terrifying intelligence before vanishing into the brush. Later, they found impossibly large paw prints that just stopped mid-trail, as if the beast had vanished into thin air, or shifted into something else. Some have suggested the creature could be a dire wolf, an extinct species, but this is not supported by scientific evidence, although the show The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch has explored the possibility. The TV series, also The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, has documented investigations into various, anomalies of the ranch, including the wolf-like creature sightings, and has included DNA analysis of samples collected there, so give that a watch if you're curious. The Land Between the Lakes massacre in Kentucky. A family of 4 were found brutally torn apart at a campground in the Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area. Park officials blamed a bear, but witnesses who arrived before authorities claimed otherwise. Now, one camper described hearing growls unlike anything he'd ever heard, followed by screams and something huge crashing through the trees. The survivor said the creature walked on 2 legs, had claws, and glowing red eyes. Their RV had claw marks 8 feet off the ground. The creature is typically described as a tall, kind of wolf or dog-like being with glowing red eyes and a powerful build. Now, many modern reports involve encounters with the creature matching this description, often near remote areas or campgrounds. Now, some stories suggest the creature is a Native American shaman transformed into a wolf, while others, propose a European settler with a night rage condition. The Palmyra werewolf in Maine. Now, in 2007, a husband and wife named Eric and Shelley Rockwell Martin were driving through rural Maine when their car suddenly just stopped. Moments later, they saw 3 large, upright, wolf-like creatures approach from the tree line. Now, these things were coordinated, walking side by side and circling their vehicle. When the creatures noticed the couple watching, they began tapping the car windows with clawed fingers. The creatures only left when a second car approached and actually scared them off. They moved to a rural farmhouse seeking a fresh start. Now, before the main event, the family noticed strange lights in the woods and a large nest in the woods, also indicating unusual activity. One evening, while relaxing on their porch, Eric and Shelley witnessed several wolf-like creatures approaching their house. The creatures had dog-like features, stood on 2 legs, and had pupil-less eyes that reflected a yellow-green color this time. Now, the creatures appeared to be stalking the family, circling their house and making them feel trapped. The family retreated inside, terrified of course, and spent a very long and frightening night barricaded in their home. Now, some speculate the creatures were dogmen or werewolves, while others suggest they might have been misidentified animals or even government experiments just gone completely wrong. Now, the family later found evidence of the creature's presence, including dug up ground, scratches on the house, and claw marks on the roof. The family ultimately sold the house and moved away, clearly disturbed by the experience. The Michigan dogman encounter in Wexford County in 1987. Now, a group of lodgers thought they were being stalked by a bear, but then it stood up on 2 legs, howled like a wolf, and charged towards them. It stopped just short of the tree line, kind of glaring before disappearing again into the forest. The film kind of starts with the sons of a man named Aaron Gable riding snowmobiles on an open stretch of land. It then cuts to Gable chopping wood before reaching for a drink. The film then jumps to a view of the forest before cutting to Gable's dog playing and running around on a road. After a short amount of time, the film then jumps to Aaron Gable repairing his truck. Now, soon after, he begins to drive down a road while his son operates the camera. The latter starts to record a creature crawling on all 4s in the forest. Gable stops the truck, takes the camera off of his son. He follows the creature's trail on foot, and after a few shots of Gable walking and running through the woods, the film then cuts to a shot of the creature just standing still and watching Gable. The animal subsequently charges at Gable, prompting him to then run. The creature's jaws are visible for a brief second before Gable drops to the ground. Now, sightings of this dogman have been reported in Michigan since 1800. Some believe it's a cryptid, others say it's supernatural, and the state even released a song in the 80s warning people to stay away from the woods. The British werewolf of Cannock Chase in Staffordshire, UK. Now, in the early 2000s, dozens of people near Cannock Chase, and in particular near the cemetery, reported seeing a werewolf-like creature roaming the forest. This is one of the UK's most active paranormal hotspots. So many people visit who are looking to see some, well, paranormal stuff. Now, one man said he watched it being a werewolf devouring a deer standing up. Others said it chased cars and it emitted an awful smell like wet dog mixed with decay. British tabloids exploded with werewolf headlines, and despite, criticism and skepticism, the frequency of the sightings led some local officials to quietly investigate it. The rogarou of Louisiana. Now, in the bayous of Louisiana, locals still whisper about the rogarou, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a wolf. But one account from a biologist surveying wetlands in 2012 stands out. He claimed he was stalked by something pacing him in the reeds. Now, it growled deep and low, and when he caught a glimpse through his binoculars, he saw something with glowing amber eyes and sharp teeth watching him from the brush on two legs. He cut the survey short and refused to return alone, of course. Now, there are modern reports of sightings and encounters blurring the lines between folklore and reality. According to some folklore accounts, people have reported hearing unexplained howls or seeing large wolf-like creatures in the swamps. These accounts, often coming from locals with deep ties to the bayou, contribute to the enduring mysteries surrounding the rogarou. The Ohio howler in Mansfield, Ohio. Now, back in 2016, reports surfaced of a dogman sighting in Mansfield, Ohio, adding to the growing number of dogman encounters in that state. Family was sitting on their back deck when they heard a howl so loud it shook the windows. Their dog bolted inside, tail tucked, and when they looked towards the woods, they saw something massive crouched in the brush. Now, it had long arms, pointed ears, and a snout, and it was watching them. When they turned on the floodlight, it sprinted off on two legs, disappearing into the cornfields. The family later learned that several other neighbors had reported strange howls that same exact week. While the specific, details of the Mansfield sighting haven't been widely publicized, it's part of a larger trend of dogman sightings in Ohio, with some accounts describing the creature as a werewolf-like being between 4 to 6 feet tall, often muscular, with pink or gray skin, and sometimes seen on all fours or walking upright. Podcasts mention other dogman encounters in Ohio, including a report from Judy, who shared her encounters and her boyfriend Brian's plans to hunt the creature. Another podcast episode features a discussion about a terrifying encounter in the same area as Judy's, and were these encounters the result of hallucination, fear, or something science simply hasn't caught up to yet? Whatever the answer is, people are seeing something, and the stories just keep piling up. So if you're walking alone in the woods and you hear a low growl behind your back, maybe don't look back. The phantom hitchhiker on Highway 47. She whispers your name as she fades from the back seat, and you realize you never hit the brakes. That's how drivers describe the chilling moment the phantom hitchhiker disappears. And no matter how many times people tell this story, one thing never changes: the look of pure terror on the face of those who saw her. This legend haunts Highway 47 near Tom Hill, where multiple locals claim to have picked up a young woman wearing a torn white dress, barefoot with long dark hair. She looks lost, she looks scared, she always gives an address near the cemetery. Then somewhere along the drive, she vanishes, leaving behind an icy cold seat, the scent of wet earth, or sometimes a personal item like a scarf or a bracelet. One driver claimed he found the scarf on a headstone the next morning. Now, this isn't just a ghost story passed around for laughs. Police logs and community message boards over the years show consistent reports of a girl seen walking alone late at night on that same stretch of road. Some call it folklore, others are convinced she's real. They say she was a teen that was unalived in a hit and run while fleeing an abusive relationship decades ago, and she's still looking for someone to get her home safely. The most terrifying part, well, many drivers say they felt fine at first until she whispered something that made no sense at all, something like, "He's still out there," and then vanishes. No trace, no sound, just silence, followed by a sense of overwhelming dread that stayed with them for days. La Malahora. Now, you're driving alone, it's close to midnight. Suddenly, a figure appears in the road, tall, shrouded in black, unmoving. You can't see her face. Your headlights flicker. You hit the brakes, but everything freezes. You try to scream, but nothing comes out. Well, that's La Malahora, the evil hour. Now, this horrifying entity appears in remote parts of New Mexico, particularly along back roads near the Rio Grande. Now, witnesses say she manifests as a shadowy woman with a veil, or as as a shifting black mist. Now her presence is an omen. If you see her, something terrible is about to happen, and if she gets close to you, there's literally no turning back. Now one woman driving back from Santa Fe describes seeing La Malahora standing at a crossroad, her black cloak kind of billowing despite the still air. She didn't stop, but when she got home, she found out her brother had passed away right around the exact same time that she passed the spirit. The earliest known versions of this legend date back to the early 1900s. Some believe La Malahora is a demon, others think, she's the spirit of a woman who lost her children to war or plague and now punishes those who cross her path. Whatever she is, the stories all agree on one thing. She shows up right before someone passes away, and she never appears twice to the same person. The demon dog Skinwalker of La Cruces. Now, it wasn't a dog, it wasn't a wolf, it wasn't anything that should exist. That's what Carlos, a 19-year-old college student from La Cruces, said after something chased him through the desert at 2:14 a.m. one night in 2015. He was heading home from a friend's house when he heard heavy footsteps behind him, too fast to be human, too loud to be a dog, so he turned and saw it. Black fur, long limbs, yellow eyes that kind of glowed in the dark. It was running upright and it was laughing. Local folklore calls it the demon dog, but others believe it's just a skinwalker or a shapeshifter from Navajo legend, now said to be kind of a witch who uses dark magic to become a beast. Now the skinwalker myth is sacred, feared, and rarely spoken of in public, but in southern New Mexico, people have reported seeing creatures that match its description for years. A rancher outside of La Cruces reported finding 14 of his goats mutilated overnight. No red liquid, no footprints. Surveillance cameras recorded only static and a deep growling noise before cutting off completely. When he checked the pen the next morning, the locks were still intact, but the goats were scattered and torn apart as if something flew in and out. Now another local swears the creature followed him home. He saw it standing near the tree line at the edge of his property. That night, his dogs barked non-stop and he heard scratching at his window. In the morning, claw marks were etched into the glass. He moved out a week later. I don't blame him. The demon dog doesn't just, hunt, it kind of plays with you. It mimics your voice, it draws you in, and when you're isolated, scared, and alone, that's when it strikes. The ghost children of Arroyo Seco. Now they play by the riverbank at dusk, barefoot, soaking wet, laughing softly as they skip stones across the surface. And if you get too close, they'll invite you to play. Now locals near Arroyo Seco, just north of Teos, speak of children who haunt a bend in the river. The story goes that in the 1940s, a school bus swerved off a narrow bridge during a really bad storm and crashed into the river. To this day, hikers and locals say they've seen ghostly children by the water, always in very small groups, always near sundown. One man says he heard giggling while he was fishing alone. He turned and actually saw a group of children watching him from the opposite bank. He then waved at them. They actually waved back. Then one of them stepped into the river and then vanished, like without a splash, nothing. Now another woman was walking her dog when she saw a small barefoot girl standing on the trail. The girl looked lost, so she actually bent down to ask if she needed help. Now the girl said, "Can you find my bus?" Then disappeared into the trees. Her dog refused to move for several minutes, whining and just shaking uncontrollably. Now even more disturbing are the stories of people hearing their own names called by children's voices, very faint, echoing, and always just out of view somehow. Some believe the children are harmless, while others think, they're trying to pull people into the river to join them. Ghost hunters who have investigated the area report very odd EMF readings, unexplained splashing sounds, and sun and cold spots, but they all agree on one thing. The air near the part of the river feels a lot heavier, like someone is watching you, like someone is waiting. La Llorona of the Organ Mountains. Now she walks the trails barefoot, draped in white, her long black hair hiding her face. You hear her before you see her, crying softly and whispering, "Now donde están mis hijos?" which is her saying, "Where are my children?" La Llorona, the weeping woman. Her story is told across Latin America, but in New Mexico, especially in the jagged shadows of the Organ Mountains, her legend feels terrifyingly real. One hiker said he was exploring the Aguirre Springs trail alone just before dusk when he heard a woman sobbing behind him. He actually turned around. No one was there. The crying grew louder and louder. He started running, but the sound stayed right behind him until it suddenly just stopped. When he got to his car, the windows were fogged from the inside and his back seat was soaking wet. Another group of campers said they saw a woman in white drifting along the edge of their campsite late one night. Now, she was hovering a few inches off the ground. One of them tried to approach her, thinking maybe she needed help, but she turned to look at him and her face was bloated and blue, her mouth wide open in a very unnatural scream. The man literally collapsed. When he woke up, his boots were filled to the top with water. It hadn't rained there in days. Now, some say La Llorona is the spirit of a woman who did something terrible in a fit of rage and was cursed to wander forever in search of her missing children. Now, others believe she's more than a ghost, that she's more like a warning, a punishment, or a trap for the lost and lonely. And in the stillness of the desert, where sound travels for miles and shadows stretch like claws, her presence feels like more than just a story. Now, whether you believe in her or not, one thing is certain: the Organ Mountains are beautiful during the day, but when the sun sets and the trails go quiet, no one hikes there alone. So next time you find yourself in New Mexico, keep your eyes open and your instincts very sharp, because in a land where, you know, the deceased never rest and the past kind of just goes into the present, legends don't stay legends for long. They come knocking. They stand in the road, they cry by the water, they follow you home.